The Jefferson nickel has been a staple of American coinage since 1938, circulating through countless hands and playing a role in everyday transactions for decades. By the time 1979 came around, the Jefferson nickel had already cemented itself as one of the most familiar coins in the United States. Yet even among the hundreds of millions of nickels minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco that year, some pieces have gone on to capture the attention of collectors in extraordinary ways. One coin in particular, the 1979 5-cent struck at the Philadelphia Mint, has become a legend in numismatic circles not because of its face value, which remains 5 cents, but because of its rarity in certain conditions and qualities that have made it worth anywhere from $3,800 all the way up to $110,500. That enormous leap in value is what makes this coin one of the most fascinating collectibles of its era. The 1979 P. Jefferson nickel was struck at a time when the U.S. Mint was heavily focused on mass production. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of nickels, ensuring that there were more than enough to meet the demands of circulation. For the average person in 1979, a nickel was just part of everyday life. It could buy a piece of candy, contribute to an arcade game session, or be dropped into a payphone. Most people never stopped to examine the details of the coin, never looked closely at Monticello on the reverse or the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse. And yet, hidden among the flood of ordinary strikes were a handful of extraordinary examples, coins that would eventually be recognized by collectors as true treasures. One of the most important factors that makes the 1979 nickel so valuable is the sharpness of strike. The reverse of the coin features Jefferson's Monticello, and along the base of that building are steps that are often weakly struck. Collectors prize what are called full steps nickels, where those steps appear with crystal clarity. A full steps 1979 Jefferson nickel in pristine mint state is almost impossible to find, which is why when such examples appear at auction, they command breathtaking premiums. The difference between a coin that shows weak details and one that shows the full steps can mean the difference between a value of a few dollars and an astonishing $110, $500. The thrill of such coins lies in their rarity. Out of hundreds of millions of nickels struck in 1979, only a handful have the sharpness and condition to qualify as high-grade full steps examples. It is like finding perfection in a sea of ordinary. Collectors understand this scarcity and are willing to bid aggressively when such coins appear. It isn't just about owning a nickel from 1979, it's about owning the finest representation of what the U.S. Mint was capable of producing in that year, a nearly flawless example of American coinage art. Stories circulate within the collector community about how some of these coins were discovered. Sometimes they come from old rolls or bags that were set aside and forgotten for decades. Other times they are spotted by eagle-eyed collectors searching through circulation. The idea that you could be holding a coin worth only 5 cents in the palm of your hand, but with the right qualities could actually be worth between $3,800 and $110,500, adds an incredible sense of mystery and excitement to the world of numismatics. The obverse of the coin, featuring Jefferson's bust, also plays a role in the grading process. To achieve the highest grades, the surfaces must be virtually flawless, with no distracting marks, scratches, or blemishes. Coins that remain in such perfect condition after more than 4 decades are exceedingly rare. Consider how many 1979 nickels have passed through vending machines, coin jars, children's piggy banks, and cash registers over the years. The odds of survival in untouched, pristine condition are minuscule. And yet, against those odds, a few coins have survived, and they are now the crown jewels of the Jefferson nickel series. There's also the allure of errors and varieties. Some 1979 nickels display minor doubling on the letters or numbers, the result of imperfections during the minting process. Others may have unusual planchet flaws or striking errors that give them unique characteristics. While not all errors are valuable, certain dramatic ones can significantly increase a coin's worth. Collectors are always on the hunt for these oddities, because they tell a story of how even in a highly mechanized system like the U.S. Mint, mistakes can slip through and create coins that stand apart from the rest. The historical backdrop of 1979 adds even more depth to the story of this coin. The late 1970s were a turbulent time in America. Inflation was rising, gasoline shortages had defined much of the decade, and the nation was preparing to enter a new decade full of uncertainty. Yet in pockets, in wallets, and in cash registers across the country, Jefferson nickels quietly circulated, serving as a reminder of stability in everyday commerce. The Jefferson design, unchanged since 1938, was a symbol of continuity during a time of upheaval. Holding a 1979 nickel today is like holding a snapshot of that moment in history, a piece of metal that has traveled through time carrying with it the weight of an era. Auction stories of these coins are nothing short of astonishing. Collectors have witnessed bidding wars that start at a few $1,000s and rapidly climb into the six-figure range. The drama of these sales is palpable, each bidder knowing that they may never see another coin of this quality again. When the hammer finally drops, the audience often reacts with astonishment at the final price. And the new owner leaves not just with a coin, but with a piece of American history that is unmatched in its rarity. The 1979 Jefferson nickel also represents the joy of possibility for collectors at all levels. Beginners might start by checking their pocket change or searching through rolls from the bank, always with the dream of finding something extraordinary. Advanced collectors, meanwhile, pursue the highest-graded examples, chasing after that elusive full steps designation in the upper mint state grades. In both cases, the excitement is the same, the chance that an ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be something truly special. What makes the story of the 1979 nickel so compelling is that it reminds us of the hidden value all around us. We are so used to thinking of nickels as small change, easily overlooked or discarded, that we forget they are pieces of history. Every detail on the coin, the profile of Jefferson, the design of Monticello, the mint mark, tells a story. And for a few rare examples, those details are captured so perfectly that they elevate the coin from everyday object to priceless treasure. The jump in value from $3,800 to $110,500 is not just about condition or rarity. It is about passion. Collectors are driven by the desire to own something unique, something that connects them to history in a tangible way. When they bid thousands of dollars on a nickel, they are not just buying metal. They are buying a story, a symbol of perfection, and a piece of cultural heritage. That is what makes coins like the 1979 Jefferson nickel so much more than money. They become artifacts that carry meaning beyond their face value. So the next time you come across a nickel from 1979, don't pass it by without a second glance. Look closely. Study the details. Check the steps on Monticello. Examine the surfaces for sharpness. And ask yourself if you might be holding one of those elusive treasures. Because somewhere out there, tucked away in a jar of coins or resting in a forgotten roll, there may still be a 1979 Jefferson nickel worth as much as $110,500. And the thought of that possibility is what keeps collectors searching, year after year, driven by the hope of finding one small piece of metal that tells an extraordinary story. In 1999, the world was standing at the edge of a new millennium. Y2K fears were buzzing across offices and households. Technology was accelerating at a breathtaking pace, and people were preparing to welcome the year 2000 with both excitement and uncertainty. It was in this backdrop that the United States Mint continued striking coins for circulation, including the Jefferson nickel, a design that had already been an American staple since 1938. At first glance, a 1999 P Jefferson nickel looks just like any other, a simple 5-cent piece exchanged in vending machines, diners, and gas stations. But beneath its ordinary appearance lies an extraordinary truth. Some of these coins, particularly in pristine condition with rare qualities, have commanded jaw-dropping prices at auction, ranging anywhere from $24,500 to as high as $110,500. For a coin that most people would pass along without a second thought, that is nothing short of astonishing. To understand why the 1999 P Jefferson nickel is so special, it's important to look at the bigger picture. The P Mint mark identifies it as being struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This mint has produced billions of coins over the years, and in 1999 it was no different, striking massive quantities of nickels to keep up with the ever-growing demand for circulating change. When a coin is minted in such huge numbers, one might assume rarity is impossible. After all, how could something made by the hundreds of millions be valuable? The answer lies in the tiny details that most people overlook: condition, strike quality, and unique minting errors. Collectors have long sought Jefferson nickels with what are known as full steps on the reverse design. This detail refers to the steps leading up to Monticello, Jefferson's famous home. Because of the way the coins were struck, most examples fail to show clear, distinct steps. They are usually weakly struck, blurred, or flattened. Finding a 1999p nickel with sharp, uninterrupted steps is exceedingly rare. Combine that rarity with a coin that has survived in pristine, uncirculated condition, and suddenly you have a collectible that commands extraordinary value. In fact, it is precisely these coins that have driven collectors into bidding wars, pushing the price from what might seem like an ordinary 5 cents into the tens of thousands, all the way up to $110, $500. Imagine sitting in an auction hall, surrounded by seasoned collectors, the air tense with anticipation. A gleaming 1999p Jefferson nickel appears on the block. The coin is dazzling under the lights, every detail sharp and full, Monticello steps looking as if they were chiseled with precision. The bidding begins modestly, but it doesn't stay that way for long. Bidders recognize its rarity immediately. Prices climb, one bid outpacing the next, and within minutes, a nickel once used in pocket change has transformed into a prize worth more than most luxury cars. The final gavel falls, over $100,000 for a single Jefferson nickel. What makes these moments so thrilling isn't just the value, but the story behind it. Coins are miniature time capsules. The 1999p Jefferson nickel carries the spirit of the late 1990s, an era when America was surging forward with optimism, when technology and culture were colliding in fascinating ways. This was the same year the Euro was introduced, SpongeBob SquarePants aired for the first time, and Napster launched, changing music forever. Holding a coin from this year isn't just about the metal. It's about holding a piece of the moment before everything shifted into a new millennium. But not every 1999p Jefferson nickel is a six-figure treasure. The vast majority are still only worth their face value. What separates the valuable from the ordinary is a mix of luck, preservation, and minting quirks. Some nickels struck that year display doubling in the design, letters that appear shadowed or doubled due to misalignment of the dies. Others may feature planchet errors, where the metal blank wasn't perfect before being struck. These oddities are mistakes to the mint but treasures to collectors, because they create uniqueness. And in the world of coin collecting, uniqueness is king. It's also worth noting how condition plays the most pivotal role. Coins graded at the highest levels, such as mint state 67 or higher, are extremely rare, especially with full steps. Each increase in grade exponentially increases value because the supply narrows dramatically. That's why one 1999p Jefferson nickel might only be worth a few dollars, while another, nearly identical to the naked eye but with flawless surfaces and crisp details, can reach into the tens of thousands. The leap from $24,500 to $110,500 is a reflection of just how passionate collectors are about owning the very best. There's something poetic about it too. The Jefferson nickel, designed by Felix Schlag, was meant to honor one of America's most influential founding fathers. Schlag's design had been in circulation for over 60 years by 1999, long familiar to generations of Americans. Yet even after decades of minting, within those billions of nickels produced, the U.S. Mint managed to create a handful of coins so perfectly struck and so well preserved that they have become legendary. It's a reminder that perfection can emerge even under the most ordinary circumstances. For collectors, the chase is everything. They spend years searching, attending shows, digging through rolls of coins, scouring auction listings, all for the chance to discover that elusive piece. And when it comes to the 1999p Jefferson nickel, that chase is electric. The idea that a coin you might still stumble upon in circulation could be worth $24,500 to $110,500 is enough to make anyone take a second look at their pocket change. Stories often emerge of lucky finds. Someone buying a roll of nickels from the bank, only to discover a pristine 1999p hiding inside, or a collector who forgot about a coin tucked away in an album decades ago and realizes its true value much later. These tales fuel the imagination, reminding us that treasure doesn't always come in gold or jewels. Sometimes, it's sitting unnoticed in a handful of nickels. Think of the sheer possibility. You might be holding a coin that survived 25 years without a single scratch, a coin that slipped through the cracks of circulation and found its way into safekeeping, only to resurface today as one of the rarest examples known. It's not just about money. It's about being part of a story much larger than yourself, about holding a piece of history that connects the past with the present in an unbroken line. And that is what makes the 1999 P. Jefferson nickel so fascinating. It is a humble coin, worth only 5 cents on its face, yet capable of reaching a value that rivals luxury watches, sports cars, and even down payments on homes. The range of $24,500 to $110,500 isn't just a number. It's a symbol of the coin's rarity, desirability, and the passion it ignites among those who chase it. The next time you come across a nickel from 1999 with the P mint mark, don't be too quick to dismiss it. Take a closer look. Study Monticello steps, examine the strike, and see if it could be one of those extraordinary few. Because hidden within that coin could be a fortune, and even more importantly, a story waiting to be told. A reminder that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest surprises. The 1999 P. Jefferson nickel proves that value isn't always about what something is made of, but about how rare, how perfect, and how deeply connected it is to history and human desire. And that's why, decades after it was minted, it continues to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and dreamers alike. A 5-cent coin that can become a $110,500 treasure. It's proof that the ordinary can, in the right circumstances, become extraordinary. The United States 5-cent coin, better known as the Jefferson nickel, has been a part of American life for decades. It has passed through millions of hands, been exchanged in diners, laundromats, theaters, and grocery stores, carrying with it small stories of everyday life. But what many people don't realize is that some of these simple coins, particularly the Jefferson nickel minted in 1964, can be worth far more than just 5 cents. In fact, certain examples of this coin have been valued and sold at prices ranging from $59,000 to as much as $162,500. That kind of number doesn't just grab attention, it transforms the way you look at the change in your pocket forever. To understand why the 1964 Jefferson nickel is so intriguing, we need to step back into the era in which it was minted. The year 1964 was a moment of profound change in America. John F. Kennedy had been assassinated just a year earlier in 1963, leaving the nation in mourning. The civil rights movement was in full force, reshaping the nation's values and its laws. The United States was also edging deeper into involvement in Vietnam. In the middle of this, the mint was facing its own unique challenge. There was a massive coin shortage sweeping across the nation. People were hoarding silver coins, and the government was under pressure to pump out as much circulating coinage as possible. The Jefferson nickel, first introduced in 1938 to honor the nation's third president, Thomas Jefferson, was still being produced in 1964 with its familiar design. The obverse featured Jefferson's profile, while the reverse depicted his iconic Monticello home. But that year, the demand for coins was so extreme that the mint struck an unprecedented number of nickels. More than 1 billion in total when combining all mints. At first glance, that would make you think a 1964 nickel could never be rare. After all, how could a coin with that kind of mintage ever be worth thousands of dollars? And yet, certain surviving examples have stunned the collecting world by reaching extraordinary values at auction. The secret lies in a few critical factors: condition, striking quality, and error varieties. Coins minted in 1964 came at the height of production pressure, which meant that many were poorly struck and worn down quickly as they entered circulation. Finding one in pristine, untouched condition is extremely difficult. Collectors are always on the hunt for what's called a full steps Jefferson nickel. On the reverse of the coin, Monticello steps are one of the most challenging details to strike cleanly. A nickel with sharply defined, uninterrupted steps is far rarer than one where the design has blurred together. In fact, those rare full steps 1964 nickels in top grades are precisely the coins that have achieved prices between $59,000 and $162,500. Imagine a collector at an auction, eyes fixed on the gleaming surface of a coin they've only ever dreamed of owning. Under magnification, every detail of Jefferson's profile is sharp, the lettering is crisp, and Monticello's steps are boldly defined. The auctioneer starts the bidding and hands shoot up. What begins at a few thousand quickly climbs to tens of thousands. The room grows tense as bidders push higher, and finally, the gavel comes down at 6 figures. A nickel, just 5 cents, has become a treasure worth more than a luxury car or even a house. But these aren't just coins. They're windows into history. Every Jefferson nickel from 1964 carries the story of a country in transition. Think about the millions of people who handled them, workers paid in coins and bills, families saving change in jars, children spending nickels at candy stores. Yet hidden among the ordinary are the extraordinary, the examples that somehow escaped circulation, were preserved in near-perfect condition, and decades later would shock the world with their value. There are also fascinating varieties and errors associated with the 1964 nickel that add to its allure. Because so many were struck, quality control wasn't always perfect. Some coins show double designs, while others display unusual die breaks or planchet flaws. For collectors, these aren't defects, they're opportunities. Each mistake in the minting process creates uniqueness, and uniqueness drives value. When combined with pristine condition, it's the perfect recipe for record-breaking auction prices. And the psychology of collecting plays a huge role here as well. Coin collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying stories, prestige, and rarity. To own a top-graded 1964 Jefferson nickel is to hold something that only a handful of people in the entire world can claim. That exclusivity drives intense competition. When the price climbs from $59,000 toward $162,500, it isn't just about the coin itself. It's about being part of history, about owning a tangible link to America's past, and about knowing you possess something nearly impossible to find again. It's easy to dismiss a nickel as ordinary, but when you dig deeper into the story of the 1964 issue, you realize why collectors place such immense value on it. The design itself, created by artist Felix Schlag, had been in use since 1938 and would remain on nickels for decades. By 1964, it was already a familiar sight, yet within that familiarity lies the thrill of discovery. The thought that one of the billion struck could be worth more than $100,000 today sparks excitement, not only for seasoned collectors but also for anyone curious enough to check their pocket change. Think of the possibilities. A jar of old coins sitting in someone's attic, forgotten for generations, might contain one of these treasures. A handful of nickels at a flea market could hide a gem overlooked by countless eyes. The dream of turning a 5-cent piece into a 6-figure windfall is what keeps collectors and treasure hunters motivated. The 1964 Jefferson nickel is proof that such dreams do come true. When stories emerge of these nickels selling for staggering prices, they ignite a wave of curiosity. People everywhere begin to look more closely at their change, hoping lightning might strike twice. And why not? Every rare coin discovered today once sat unnoticed, dismissed as ordinary. That's the magic of coins like the 1964 Jefferson nickel. They remind us that value often hides in plain sight, so the next time you see a nickel from 1964, don't be too quick to let it slip through your fingers. Take a closer look. Examine Jefferson's portrait, study Monticello's steps, and check for unusual errors. You never know. You might be holding a coin worth anywhere from $59,000 to $162,500. And in that moment, you won't just be holding a piece of metal. You'll be holding a piece of history, a story of resilience, rarity, and the endless possibilities hidden in everyday life. The 1964 Jefferson nickel is more than just a coin. It's a reminder that treasures still exist among the ordinary, that stories of value and meaning can be found in the smallest of places. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who has never looked twice at pocket change, the story of this coin proves one powerful truth. Sometimes, the greatest fortune comes from the humblest beginnings.